Welcome to Truth in the Word podcast. Today we're diving into a constitutional issue that doesn't get enough attention, but absolutely should. Like what happens when a city government violates your 14th Amendment rights. Is that just procedure or is it a violation of your constitutional rights? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Pastor Michael A. West, Pastor Robinson Memorial Church in Lansing, Michigan, who is becoming somewhat of an expert in constitutional and civil procedure due to their ongoing fight against the city of Lansing over property that the church owns. But thank you for being here, Pastor.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here since this is an issue that affects churches and nonprofits alike. And honestly, our fight is everyone's fight.
Well, let's start with the basics. When we talk about due process rights, especially under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, what does that actually guarantee?
At its core, due process guarantees fairness.
Mm-hmm.
Due process guarantees that the government cannot arbitrarily deprive anyone, any person, of life, liberty, or property without following fair and legal procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Rooted in the Fifth and the 14th Amendment, it ensures fundamental fairness, requiring notice of proceedings, an opportunity to be heard, and a neutral decision maker. Someone that's neutral, not someone that's close to the government, but somebody that's neutral. And not just theoretically, but in real court that has the authority to decide your case. Someone that really has the authority to decide which case is heard and with fairness.
Okay. So you're saying 14th Amendment, it guarantees fairness for any person of life, liberty, or property without following fair legal procedures.
Exactly. The 14th Amendment is exactly what the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments about currently. In essence, there are several sections of the law, but today we are going to cover the right to due process.
Okay. Well, let's connect that to the situation we're discussing. Robinson Memorial Church of God in Christ is bringing a case that includes constitutional claims, civil rights, violations, tort claims, FOIA issues, and damages. But the city says your claims and argues that the case belongs to the tax tribunal. What's the problem with that?
Okay. The problem with the defense argument is jurisdiction.
Okay.
The Michigan Tax Tribunal has very limited authority.
Okay.
Now, under the Wickman and City of Novi, the Michigan Tax Tribunal only handles cases such as property, valuation, and tax assessment disputes.
Okay.
It cannot hear constitutional claims, civil rights claims, tort claims, or FOIA claims, or award general damages. Therefore, if you send these type of claims to the tax tribunal, they will effectively disappear.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you're saying the church's claim is that your issues are no tax issues, but the issue is the church's right to due process?
Exactly. We have unequivocally argued that the city of Lansing has violated our church's right to due process by not issuing any notice that our tax-exempt status had been changed or modified.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 4.5 years later that the city stated on record that the change of our status because they believed that the church was not utilizing the property according to the exemption.
Wow.
So due process is a constitutional guarantee that the government must act with fundamental fairness and follow the established legal procedures before depriving any person of life, liberty, or property. And that's what they're trying to deprive us of, our property.
Oh, wow. So the critical issue here lies in the fact that the city did not adhere to the established procedures by which it is obligated to operate, highlighting a serious lapse in governance.
Exactly. Once the city has initiated foreclosure procedures against our church without following a structured process, they violated the church's 14th Amendment right.
Wow.
This process involved verifying that the change in status, they got to verify it first, and then they got to provide notice to us that, hey, we're changing the status. This is why we're changing the status. And then they have to offer us an opportunity to rebut their reason for the change of status, our reason to appeal. The assessor must determine if the organization still satisfies the organizational purpose and tested, and the property use test. They didn't do that, and they didn't offer us any notice to say that they were changing the status. Exactly today, we still don't have any notification.
I don't notice at all, huh?
Of course.
So the church argues that the city's land use actions was legally incorrect and fundamentally unfair because the city, failed to grant the church their constitutional right to due process.
Exactly. Correct. The actions of the city of Lansing constitute differential treatment of a religious institution compared to similarly situated nonprofits or churches. So now this aligns with the 14th Amendment law on equal protection because the government may not single out a religious organization for harsher treatment. See, governments are prohibited from applying tax laws inconsistently and use discretionary power in this discriminatory manner. Our church is arguing that the city's actions were not merely mistaken, but targeted and arbitrary, which is a classic equal protection territory.
Excuse me. So, okay, but let's bring this home. If you had to explain the constitutional issue here in one sentence, what would you say?
I would say a government violation of a church's right to equal protection and due process undermines the fundamental constitutional safeguards, eroding both the religious liberty and the rule of law. Such actions not only harm the targeted institution, but also sets a precedent that weakens protections for all individuals and organizations.
Wow, that's powerful and honestly a little unsettling. Because it shows how something that looks like a failure of the church to do their due diligence is really a cover-up by a governmental entity that attempts a power play on a marginalized community, which can have huge constitutional consequences.
Exactly. Due process and equal protection isn't just about rules, it's about justice.
Well, you know what? That's a great place to end. And thanks again for joining us on the Truth and Word podcast.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we will see you again.
All right. Have a great day.
You as well.